Hello, Baking Squad, and welcome back to another episode of Baking with Kayla. Today, we will learn how to make homemade mac and cheese. We will first begin by putting the large elbows of mac and cheese provided by Ray's into a pot of boiling water. You will let that boil for about 5 to 7 minutes before straining it in the sink. You will then begin to place 1/4 cup of butter into a saucepan. So then you'll place this in and turn it to a high heat just to melt it quickly. Let the butter melt, stirring it with a wooden spoon. Oh, I turned on the wrong stovetop. There we go. You will let the butter melt completely until you will add in 2.5 tablespoons of flour to make it a roux. The ingredient said R-O-U-X, so I'm going to say roux. I guess that is to make it creamier. While the butter's melting, we can now start to grate our cheese. I have a nice sharp cheddar cheese. You will then grate the cheese with a grater. Now the best way I find to do this is to grate it like this. You just push firmly onto the grater. So you have to multitask here. Stir the butter. Now the recipe that I used asks for, I believe, 2 cups of cheese, but I like my dairy products, so I put a little bit extra. And then this is when you will add in the flour. Now, I have these handy dandy little tablespoons. So there's 2 different tablespoons on each side. That's 2 tablespoons, and you'll add it in. And then your 1/2 tablespoon. And then you will stir that completely until everything is dissolved together. The flour thickens it so it gives it that creamy texture. You will then pour 3 cups of milk. So that is 1 cup, 2 cups, and 3 cups of milk. You'll then stir and let that sit for about a minute. Make sure to keep your area clean, because a clean baking surface calls for a good time of baking. That was bad, sorry you had to hear that. Then you'll continue to grate your cheese. You will now put your 1/2 cup of Parmesan cheese inside, and your 2 cups, or for me more, of cheddar cheese inside. Again, you will stir until the cheese is melted. You will now check on your macaroni to make sure that it is done. I usually do this by trying to grab one and giving it a taste test. I'll keep grabbing a little bit more. If it is crunchy, then it still needs time. A little bit more time. You'll go back to your pan and stir in the cheese, melting it completely. I like a little bit more cheese, so I'm just going to throw in a little bit more. It didn't look cheesy enough. Although my jokes are too cheesy, so we're fine there. Continuously stir. I just burned myself. Oh, that was not fun. Oh, yeah, that wasn't good. Okay, at this time you're going to want to preheat your oven to 350. You will now bring your boiled macaroni over to a sink that has a strainer, and you'll strain the water out of the macaroni. Okay, now you'll check back in your cheese mixture. Hopefully it has thickened up and been real cheesy. Make sure all the cheese is melted. At this point, you're going to want to grate more cheese for the topping of your macaroni. Because, I mean, again, it's macaroni and cheese. So, it's going to use a lot of cheese. You will then grab a clean casserole dish And then you will begin to place your strained macaroni. Make sure that it is completely strained. There should be no more water within it. You'll then bring it over to your casserole dish and pour the macaroni inside. Make sure that everything's even. You will then pour your mixture over the macaroni inside of the dish, making sure that everything is even. Now you will set that aside, and then you will begin in a saucepan to melt butter and margarine, into a pan and add breadcrumbs to it. This is just for the topping. This is optional. You don't have to do this. But, you know, I like to. So, I will now add my butter into my saucepan. Boop. And I will let that melt, continuously stirring it like before. You will then put half a cup of breadcrumbs into your mixture. Putting the breadcrumbs into the mixture will give it that brown, texture-ish look that we all see on all those homemade macaroni recipes. Now you can sprinkle your cheese that you grated earlier and sprinkle it on top of your macaroni casserole dish. Continuously stir your breadcrumbs. They should be getting to be almost done now. Okay, you will now grab your casserole dish and sprinkle the breadcrumbs on top of the dish. Make sure that they are evenly spaced out. And finally, the last thing you're going to want to do is sprinkle some paprika. I sprinkle it into my hand first because otherwise sometimes it gets out of control. So I sprinkle some into my hand. Then I just drizzle on top of the macaroni to give it some nice color. You will then place your casserole dish inside the preheated oven at 350 for 30 minutes. This should be the final result of your homemade mac and cheese. Looks pretty good. Thank you, Baking Squad.